All right, so today we will be starting chapter 12, section 2, the way to remember God, which is so interesting because we were just talking about that. Seems like every time we have a conversation, it's addressed in whatever we're reading, which I think is so interesting every single time. And I will give it just another minute. So if anybody else wants to join before we start reading, they can join. All right, it is 12:30, so I am going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. And let's see if I can see where we are. Okay, so this is where I thought we were, but apparently we are not here. I'm going to go to the next one, which is the way to remember God. All right, A Course in Miracles, chapter 12, the way to remember God. Miracles are merely the translation of denial into truth. If to love oneself is to heal oneself, those who are sick do not love themselves. Therefore, they are asking for the love that would heal them, but which they are denying to themselves. If they knew the truth about themselves, they could not be sick. The task of the miracle worker thus becomes to deny the denial of truth. The sick must heal themselves, for the truth is in them. Yet, having obscured it, the light in another mind must shine into theirs, because that light is theirs. The light in them shines as brightly, regardless of the density of the fog that obscures it. If you give no power to the fog to obscure the light, it has none, for it has power only if the Son of God gives power to it. He must himself withdraw that power, remembering that all power is of God. You can remember this for all the sonship. Do not allow your brother not to remember, for his forgetfulness is yours. But your remembering is his, for God cannot be remembered alone. This is what you have forgotten. To perceive the healing of your brother as the healing of yourself is thus the way to remember God. For you forgot your brothers with him, and God's answer to your forgetting is but the way to remember. Perceive in sickness but another call for love, and offer your brother what he believes he cannot offer himself. Whatever the sickness, there is but one remedy. You will be made whole as you make whole. For to perceive in sickness, the appeal for health is to recognize in hatred the call for love. And to give a brother what he really wants is to offer it unto yourself. For your Father wills you know your brother as yourself. Answer his call for love, and yours is answered. Healing is the love of Christ for his Father and for himself. Remember what was said about the frightening perceptions of little children, which terrify them because they do not understand them. If they ask for enlightenment and accept it, their fears vanish. But if they hide their nightmares, they will keep them. It is easy to help an uncertain child, for he recognizes that he does not understand what his perceptions mean. Yet you believe that you do understand yours. Little child, you are hiding your head under the cover of the heavy blankets you have laid upon yourself. You are hiding your nightmares in the darkness of your own false certainty and refusing to open your eyes and look at them. Let us not save nightmares, for they are not fitting offerings for Christ, and so they are not fit gifts for you. Take off the covers and look at what you are afraid of. Only the anticipation will frighten you, for the reality of nothingness cannot be frightening. Let us not delay this, for your dream of hatred will not leave you without help, and help is here. Learn to be quiet in the midst of turmoil, for quietness is the end of strife, and this is the journey to peace. Look straight at every image that rises to delay you, for the goal is inevitable, because it is eternal. The goal of love is but your right, and it belongs to you despite your dreams. You still want what God wills, and no nightmare can defeat a child of God in his purpose. For your purpose was given you by God, and you must accomplish it because it is his will. Awake and remember your purpose, for it is your will to do so. What has been accomplished for you must be yours. Do not let your hatred stand in the way of love, for nothing can withstand the love of Christ for his Father, or his Father's love for him. A little while, and you will see me, for I am not hidden, because you are hiding. I will awaken you as surely as I awakened myself, for I awoke for you. In my resurrection is your release. Our mission is to escape from crucifixion, not from redemption. Trust in my help, for I did not walk alone, and I will walk with you as our Father walked with me. Do you not know that I walked with him in peace? And does not that mean that peace goes with us on the journey? There is no fear in perfect love. We will but be making perfect to you what is already perfect in you. You do not fear the unknown, but the known. You will not fail in your mission because I did not fail in mine. Give me but a little trust in the name of the complete trust I have in you, and we will easily accomplish the goal of perfection together. For perfection is and cannot be denied. To deny the denial of perfection is not so difficult as to deny truth. And what we can accomplish together will be believed when you see it as accomplished. You who have tried to banish love have not succeeded, but you who choose to banish fear must succeed. The Lord is with you, but you know it not. Yet your Redeemer liveth and abideth in you in the peace out of which he was created. Would you not exchange this awareness for the awareness of fear? When we have overcome fear, not by hiding it, not by minimizing it, and not by denying its full import in any way, this is what you will really see. You cannot lay aside the obstacles to real vision without looking upon them, for to lay aside means to judge against. If you will look, the Holy Spirit will judge, and he will judge truly. Yet he cannot shine away what you keep hidden, for you have not offered it to him, and he cannot take it from you. We are therefore embarked on an organized, well-structured, and carefully planned program aimed at learning how to offer the Holy Spirit everything you do not want. He knows what to do with it. You do not understand how to use what he knows. Whatever is given him that is not of God is gone. Yet, you must look at it yourself in perfect willingness, for otherwise, his knowledge remains useless to you. Surely he will not fail to help you, since help is his only purpose. Do you not have greater reason for fearing the world as you perceive it than for looking at the cause of fear and letting it go forever? Great to have you here, Carol. I saw you joined while we were reading. Anyone have any comments about what we just read? I love how it says over and over again. You have to give it to the Holy Spirit, right? You can't do it on your own.
Yeah.
Just another reminder. I also like that part about healing the sick. The light in you can help shine away the fear in them if you share it with your brother. Getting back to what Ernesto and I were talking about earlier, I think every time I read this, I feel like I see something new. It's like, oh, I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. I think it, the Holy Spirit, I know that we call it God and all of that, but there's some sort of energy out there that we are tapped into it. And we not that we stray away from it, but we get caught up in so much thought. So we're thinking about that, it has to do with nothing, that we disalign ourselves, and not disalign, but instead of staying aligned with that one thing that knows exactly what to do at every moment,
Right.
we try to get back to that, I guess, because we stray away from it, from all the stuff that's inculcated into our brain, like so much information going on, and misinformation at that. So
Goes back to practicing, right?
yeah, exercising that, using that exercise of what the Course talks about, right? That every encounter is a holy encounter. Every encounter has something to tell us, to guide us, and vice versa. We're in tune with that.
The thing is that God is thought.
Right. The one mind of God.
It's a question of what you're thinking, though, isn't it? I always like to reflect on the idea that our thoughts are our prayers, and by our thoughts we are creating the world we're living in.
Mhm. That's true. Our thoughts do create our reality. They project it.
But what I'm feeling very much is that to really come out as the Son of God, you've almost got to take on a whole world of opposition to that.
What do you
Because
mean you have to take on the whole world of opposition? What do you mean by that?
I find everywhere I look I find a challenge to this belief in God, almost.
And where are you looking?
I'm just looking outside myself.
Mm-hmm.
Everything outside myself draws me away from truth, if you like.
Right.
I don't think you can find truth in the world at all.
No. But if you go inside yourself.
No, but it almost feels like you've got to take on the whole world in your belief system.
Well, let's break it down to what is the whole world, right?
A distraction.
I'm going to actually get the glossary for terms, because I think there's a good description in here about the world, what the world is.
In paragraph 5, sentence 5, it says, learn to be quiet in the midst of turmoil, for quietness is the end of strife, and this is the journey to peace. So it's basically telling you right there that learn to be quiet in that turmoil that you see outside. I've been practicing something similar to that for my entire career, being in the kitchen, is to find a place where the outside isn't interfering with the dance, but is a partner in it.
Yeah.
And because all that stuff outside is just, it's what you make of it, and you can find that peace in whatever situation you're in.
Yeah, I think peace requires turning away from the world and going within.
And turning away from the false world, that's a projection of our fearful thoughts, right? And so the real world, let me read this to you. I have the glossary for terms. The real world is the state of mind in which through total forgiveness, the world of perception is released from the projections of guilt we had placed upon it. Thus, it is the mind that has changed, not the world. And we see through the vision of Christ, which blesses rather than condemns. The Holy Spirit's happy dream. The end of the atonement or the at-one-ment, the undoing our thoughts of separation and allowing God to take the last step. Right? So if we can relinquish our thoughts about the separated projection of the world that we see through our fearful thoughts, and instead see the world through Christ's vision, which blesses rather than condemns, then we see the real world.
Yeah, so I don't see the world like that. So I'm looking at the world through the guilty filters of my own mind.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Ego.
But
Yeah.
you choose not to do that when you have to see it to choose that. So what you're really seeing is you're really seeing the correction, and you're really seeing the truth in yourself, recognizing the correction. So this is exactly what you're supposed to be doing. You're perfectly on track with what you need to do, Freddie.
Mm.
You have to recognize it, and you have to be able to look at it to release. The release of fear is the opposite of the fear of release. Once you see and you can accept the fact that you have to release your fear, it's easier to understand release of fear, because everything you do see in the outside world that represents to you some kind of discord or upset or regret even represents that fear, and you can release yourself from the bondage of that. There's no sense to be bound to the negativity, to the upsets, to the past that you see. We see the past when we look at the world that way. When we look at the world in the present with this peacefulness of what Jesus is showing us, then in fact we see through that, because the truth is beyond that. The truth is not in the world that way. The truth is represented in the world also, but the truth is only represented in the world when I see it through this creative process, through seeing the truth within myself. Look inward and upward is what the AA program says. I look inward and upward, and I see now I can look at the world differently. And that's exactly what you need to do, Freddie, because I remember exactly that same thing, is seeing the fact of look at what's going on in the world. How am I supposed to live like this? It was nasty. I thought to myself, I gotta get out of that. Sorry, excuse me.
Can I share something?
Katie.
Yes, go ahead.
It's Katie.
So Katie with the phone number.
Katie with the phone number.
It was today outside. Everything seems so still, and it's like the noises outside from the cars were so distant, and the stillness was more in the foreground. And I thought that showed me how my thoughts lead me to grasp or not grasp. And I think when I went to the street and everything seemed so just like the noises were not so distracting to me, I think it's because I chose something in my mind. I chose stillness in my mind. Because of that, I couldn't feel distracted by the noises. That was interesting to me. I'm done.
No, that's a good point, Katie. It's all about our choice on how we want to perceive it. And when we were reading just now, paragraph 9, section 5, that's a good point. What Eric was saying too, and saying, Freddie, you're right on track, is that when we have overcome fear, not by hiding it, right? Not by minimizing it or pretending it's not there, not by denying it its full import in any way. This is what you will really see. You cannot lay aside the obstacles to real vision without looking upon them, because to lay aside means to judge against. If you will look, the Holy Spirit will judge, and he will judge truly. Yet he cannot shine away what you keep hidden, for you have not offered it to him, and he cannot take it from you. So at that point where you look at the world and you say, this is crazy, I don't get it, it looks miserable, everybody seems to be angry, that's the point you offer it to the Holy Spirit, because in your mind, you can't fix it or change it, right? But the Holy Spirit can do that for you. And that's the whole purpose, is that you're not alone. You don't have to do this by yourself. And that's where we've kind of gone astray. We've all tried to figure it out and do it by ourselves. And that's where we're failing, because we're trying to do it with our separated ego mind, and it's not working because we don't get it that way.
And because everything seems so very specific too about every encounter that we have, then we tend to repeat those problems over again and see the lesson again, maybe more fully the next time, because the mind continues to heighten towards this peacefulness, towards this calm. So the mind continues to grow that way. When I'm disconnected from my mind, which happens often enough that I have to say it happens, when I'm disconnected from my mind that way, then I find myself in a position sometimes where I find myself sometimes being defensive, and I realize, like, well, let me stand back from that. I'm responding, I thought, but I'm not really. What I'm really doing is repeating these errors that I made in the past by seeing things that I need to correct, which isn't what the Holy Spirit is showing us at all. There's nothing to correct. Holy Spirit is showing the perfection of our soul in that completion with him.
Yeah.
Earlier today, I underlined from a earlier reading, the Holy Spirit mediates between illusions and truth. And another line, for sights and sounds must be translated from the witnesses of fear to those of love. So it fits right in with what we're talking about here.
Excellent. Thanks, Carol. Thank you. Okay, do we have any more discussion, or should we continue? That help answer your question, Freddie, or do you still have more thoughts on this?
Well, I was wondering, you see, I haven't really developed a relationship with the Holy Spirit. I used to have a lot of resistance to Jesus, but I'm not as resistant as I used to be. I find it easier to relate to the Holy Spirit, but I don't actually communicate with the Holy Spirit in my mind very often. It's only if I get a big problem to deal with, that's when I might do it. But if you really want to see a better world, I imagine you've got to kind of check in with the Holy Spirit pretty frequently.
Yeah.
Do you do that, Terry?
I do.
You do? Yeah.
60,000 thoughts a day. I try to check in as often as I can.
Right. You're consciously aware of communicating with the Holy Spirit quite frequently.
I am. Good. But it takes practice. It's it didn't come naturally for me either. And as I was talking to Nick earlier, when I first started reading the course, the words God and Jesus were like, oh, no. That's I did not like that vocabulary at all. Was not comfortable at all for me. And I had to really understand that words are but symbols of symbols. And I had to understand the truth behind the words, the meaning behind the words. So for a long time, instead of saying the word God, I said love. That I substituted the word love for the word God, and that made more sense to me. But when I watched that old movie Out on a Limb with Shirley MacLaine, that's when I first felt comfortable with the word God. And that was a big change, a big shift inside of me, because I always thought, God was for these other people that went to church, and God was for all of this other group of people that believed in this person outside of themselves. And that's because I didn't really understand what God was. Source energy, the universe, and those words are more comfortable for me because the word God just had always had this symbol of being related to church that had nothing to do with me. So.
And then I'd like to offer you the next phase of this, if you will. And maybe it's not the final one. I have that yet to experience. And I'm not sure I want to, because I love this heaven on earth. But after you've done it often enough, it just comes naturally. And I've discovered that my place of peace, my God self, is what now is home for me. And I engage in this world as a playful thing, if you will. But I never lose that which I now truly am. I'm not swallowed up by any of the duality here, nor the drama. It's just a place where I enjoy playing.
Yep.
That's
I
great,
do
Mary.
look at the world and I see, I'm very active with politics, and I'm very active with the environment and with loss of biodiversity and so on and so forth. I have a lot of issues with what happens in the world. So it has been something that I had to take very to heart to see. In fact, how can I see beyond that to see the healing that's occurring? And the ego won't look at that with me, you see. That's my purpose. So I ask, what is this for? This, in my view, this is for that purpose of seeing that there's a healing that's occurring, and I need to be part of that healing. And that's what I see it, that this is what this is for. So I feel like I have a calling towards that, just like I had a calling towards reading the Course in Miracles again after a couple of decades of putting it aside. Just like I had a calling of certain people that I meet, that I say to myself, I think I want to speak with that person again. I think I want to learn from them. And sometimes people wonder, why do I want to learn from somebody that seems so upset or so frustrated or whatever? Because I see, if I can see through that, anybody can see through that, because I can see through this problem, that this is about healing. It isn't about dying. It isn't about suffering. It isn't about sacrifice. It's about that the ego won't look at with any perfect honesty what's really happening. And what's really happening is this separation is seeming to be real to us, but it isn't real. And we have to see through the separation to see the healing. There, always available. And be able to show that, if we're teachers of God, to be able to show that to someone else is somewhat of a challenge, but it's it's enjoyable challenge. And I think that's the wonderful thing about A Course in Miracles. It becomes an enjoyable challenge, happy learning.
Yep, we're on the same page with Mary.
Yeah.
All right, are we ready to go on, or does anybody else have anything they want to add before we continue?
I'd like to ask a question, actually, because you were just commenting there that you check in with the Holy Spirit as regularly as you can.
Mhm.
What does checking in with the Holy Spirit sort of constitute? How do you do that? Because I meditate, but I'd like to do that's once or twice a day, which is 20 minutes a time. And how do you check in to kind of, I guess that's the question. How do you check in with the Holy Spirit?
Yeah, well, I do it either by saying that quick mantra, like I mentioned earlier. I give my mind to the Holy Spirit so I can walk in peace.
Okay.
I say it like that. Or if I'm really struggling with something, I do lesson 365, which is this holy instant I give to you, be you in charge, for I shall follow you, certain that your direction will bring me peace. And I've done that in the past when I've struggled with some big issues in my life. And it's funny too, because, I'm the type of person that I still probably do this. I analyze things, like, to the point where I break it down into like the most, specific particle so I can get to the root of a problem, right? And I've had some issues in the past with, my exes with regard to my children, and not big issues, honestly. I mean, we've had very little issues because we never fought about the typical things, money or anything like that. I just let all that go. But because I let that go, I was also had expectations that he and I would remain friends. And then he had this girlfriend that came into his life, and she decided that he and I were not going to be friends anymore. And, then all of a sudden, all of the sacrifices I had made for this friendship with the hopes that it would be better for my children, that started really rubbing me the wrong way. And so I did everything I could to gain her trust, everything I could do to make her realize, like, I'm not interested in him, inviting them over for dinners, trying everything. And it got really, really bad to the point where we would all be together and I was like invisible person. Like they wouldn't acknowledge me. They wouldn't say hello. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is tearing my kids apart. What am I going to do? And I was so upset that I literally, again, got down on my knees and I was like, I've tried everything. I can't think of anything else I can do. I give this to you. And I would just throw my hands up and say, I give this to you, looking inside of myself to that one mind of God. Like, I can't fix this. I don't know what to do. And after I did that, I let it go completely, not trying to fix this anymore, not trying to solve this. Put on my running shoes, went for a run. And I got halfway through my run, and all of a sudden the voice, of course, the voice for God, I hear, you need do nothing. And I was like, what? Wow. And I knew that was the right answer. Like, I don't have to do anything. It's not my job to fix him, change him, make the situation better for my kids. That was not my job. I didn't have to do anything. And as soon as I let go of any need to fix or change or help, I could just be back to myself and be the best mom I could be, run my business, do whatever I was doing, let that go completely. And 6 months later, the relationship ended.
Wow.
Just fixed itself, which was awesome. I didn't have to do anything.
There is a process, though, that you use called acceptance of the atonement plan. And that's something that brand new people don't see yet, because it seems to be spread out through the entire course. If you start with the lessons, it's taking you into understanding acceptance of the atonement.
Right.
And the atonement plan is the whole idea here of joining in this mind of peace, whereas the method that we've been taught is to debate things and to find differences and to expand on differences and so on and so forth. This is almost exactly the opposite of that, is to find similarities and to find peace and to find collaboration and enjoyment of each other. And so it's sort of the complete opposite of what we learned before. And the acceptance of the atonement plan says we learn about this by taking our upsets, our worries, our concerns, our frustrations, our difficulties, our resentments, and so on. We take that into the ladder of prayer. And in the ladder of prayer, what we're learning to do is we're saying to ourselves, okay, this is where my altar is, in a sense, my holy place, in a sense, is. It's been put there for me by holiness, which I can't change, which is permanent. And I come here to see what's permanent, because I'm the same altar that is replaced for me. My upsets, my regrets, my difficulties, my burdens of seeing things wrongly is replaced for me with peacefulness, with calm, with stillness. And then this increases in joy as I see forgiveness of holding this against myself, of making myself fearful about what was going wrong, and so on and so forth. I see that in the second phase of this, which is called forgiveness. And I see in the third stage of this healing, which says exactly almost what Terry said, is there's nothing to do outside of yourself. It's only here in this truth that you can see and recognize the truth. And there are opportunities to share that and extend that to others, is what the final step of that says to do in miracle mindedness, to extend this to others. So others may have a chance to appreciate and to enjoy what you're seeing through them, where their problem isn't in your way and it isn't in their way either, because you see it's not in their way. So this is the way to help people to be genuine and honest and authentic with someone, is to see beyond their pain, beyond their worry, beyond their suffering, to see enjoyment of the truth about themselves. And that's how to be helpful with someone. So all these things take us to this completion of ourself, which we find the only problem is I've been making the decisions to regret things that happened in my life, to fight against the situations and circumstances that come to my mind that make me look at things as if they need to be changed. There's nothing outside myself where it truly needs to be changed. Everything outside myself is the past, including what might happen yet to come in what seems to be the future. All of time, all of space, and so on and so forth happens in just really one instant. And in that one instant, to see it from timelessness, we see the ability to see the truth through that, instead of seeing the distortion of that as it occurs in just one moment of separated time in space-time.
That is true. Thank you for that, Eric.
Mm.
All right, anything else anybody wants to share before we continue?
I just wanted to say to Nick that if I accept that the Holy Spirit is a reality in my mind, then I can speak to the Holy Spirit anytime at all. You know, that's what I mean by checking in with the Holy Spirit. Just letting the Holy Spirit have what's in my head, you know, sharing it with the Holy Spirit.
Okay.
But you have to, you know, believe, I guess, be willing to have some belief in there being such a thing as the Holy Spirit.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm.
Yeah. Thank you.
But to communicate with the Holy Spirit, in other words.
Yeah. And for me, I never had that belief because I didn't have any type of religious training, and it wasn't anything I was interested in. So for me, that communication with the Holy Spirit, I see it more like an umbilical cord of energy that connects my mind with the one mind of God. So I see it as this cosmic, energetic umbilical cord that kind of connects me back to the mothership. And that's how I envision it, you know, in my non-religious mind.
Yes. Thank you. Do you know what? That's perfect, because I am challenged with the whole God thing. You know,
Right.
I believe in something, but when the words, as you said earlier, Jesus and God, I'm like, oh, this is just.
Yeah,
It's alien
exactly.
to me. So, okay, that's perfect. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
You're
Yes,
welcome.
thank you. And for you, Freddie, as well. Thank you.
All right, let's continue on to the judgment of the Holy Spirit. I think, right?
The investment in reality, is it?
Yeah.
What did we do? Did I skip that?
Yeah, we're on the investment in reality.
No, strange. How did that show up on that? Where are we? Okay, let's see.
220 in the book.
Huh. Chapter 12.
No, chapter 3. Oh, sorry, chapter 12.
Oh, 3, yeah.
Weird. Okay,
Paragraph 3. No, not
that
paragraph.
happened. Investment in reality. Okay.
Section.
Where in the world? Okay.
Someone else today.
We
I'm
must have
laughing
just.
I lose my place all the time.
Yeah.
I've learned not to even question it anymore.
So we're on the investment of reality. Okay. Okay. I think we're right. Okay. Sorry about that, guys.
No worries.
Got a little bit lost here. Okay. I once asked you to sell all you have and give to the poor and follow me. This is what I meant. If you have no investment in anything in this world, you can teach the poor where their treasure is. The poor are merely those who have invested wrongly, and they are poor indeed. Because they are in need, it is given you to help them, since you are among them. Consider how perfectly your lesson would be learned if you were unwilling to share their poverty. for poverty is lack, and there is but one lack, since there is but one need. Suppose a brother insists on having you do something you think you do not want to do. His very insistence should tell you that he believes salvation lies in it. If you insist on refusing and experience a quick response of opposition, you are believing that your salvation lies in not doing it. You then are making the same mistake he is and are making his error real to both of you. Insistence means investment, and what you invest in is always related to your notion of salvation. The question is always twofold. First, what is to be saved? And second, how can it be saved? Whenever you become angry with a brother for whatever reason, you are believing that the ego is to be saved and to be saved by attack. If he attacks, you are agreeing with this belief. And if you attack, you are reinforcing it. Remember that those who attack are poor. Their poverty asks for gifts, not for further impoverishment. You who could help them are surely acting destructively if you accept their poverty as yours. If you had not invested as they had, it would never occur to you to overlook their need. Recognize what does not matter. And if your brothers ask you for something outrageous, do it, because it does not matter. Refuse, and your opposition establishes that it does matter to you. It is only you, therefore, who have made the request outrageous, and every request of a brother is for you. Why would you insist in denying him? For to do so is to deny yourself and impoverish both. He is asking for salvation, as you are. Poverty is of the ego and never of God. No outrageous request can be made of one who recognizes what is valuable and wants to accept nothing else. Salvation is for the mind and is attained through peace. This is the only thing that can be saved and the only way to save it. Any response other than love arises from a confusion about the what and the how of salvation. And this is the only answer. Never lose sight of this and never allow yourself to believe, even for an instant, that there is another answer. For you will surely place yourself among the poor, who do not understand that they dwell in abundance and that salvation is come. To identify with the ego is to attack yourself and make yourself poor. That is why everyone who identifies with the ego feels deprived. What he experiences then is depression or anger, because what he did was to exchange self-love for self-hate, making him afraid of himself. He does not realize this. Even if he is fully aware of anxiety, he does not perceive its source as his own ego identification. And he always tries to handle it by making some sort of insane arrangement with the world. He always perceives this world as outside himself, for this is crucial to his adjustment. He does not realize that he makes this world, for there is no world outside of him. If only the loving thoughts of God's Son are the world's reality, the real world must be in his mind. His insane thoughts, too, must be in his mind. But an internal conflict of this magnitude he cannot tolerate. A split mind is endangered, and the recognition that it encompasses completely opposed thoughts within itself is intolerable. Therefore, the mind projects the split, not the reality. Everything you perceive as the outside world is merely your attempt to maintain your ego identification, for everyone believes that identification is salvation. Yet, Consider what has happened, for thoughts do have consequences to the thinker. You have become at odds with the world as you perceive it, because you think it is antagonistic to you. This is a necessary consequence of what you have done. You have projected outward what is antagonistic to what is inward, and therefore you would have to perceive it this way. That is why you must realize that your hatred is in your mind and not outside it before you can get rid of it, and why you must get rid of it before you can perceive the world as it really is. I said before that God so loved the world that he gave it to his only begotten Son. God does love the real world, and those who perceive its reality cannot see the world of death, for death is not of the real world, in which everything reflects the eternal. God gave you the real world in exchange for the one you made out of your split mind, and which is the symbol of death. For if you could really separate yourself from the mind of God, you would die. The world you perceive is a world of separation. Perhaps you are willing to accept even death to deny your Father. Yet he would not have it so, and so it is not so. You still cannot will against him, and that is why you have no control over the world you made. It is not a world of will because it is governed by the desire to be unlike God, and this desire is not will. The world you made is therefore totally chaotic, governed by arbitrary and senseless laws, and without meaning of any kind. For it is made out of what you do not want, projected from your mind because you are afraid of it. Yet this world is only in the mind of its maker, along with his real salvation. Do not believe it is outside of yourself, for only by recognizing where it is will you gain control over it. For you do have control over your mind, since the mind is the mechanism of decision. If you will recognize that all attack you perceive is in your own mind and nowhere else, you will at last have placed its source. And where it begins, it must end. For in this same place also lies salvation. The altar of God, where Christ abideth, is there. You have defiled the altar, but not the world. Yet Christ has placed the at-one-ment on the altar for you. Bring your perceptions of the world to this altar, for it is the altar to truth. There you will see your vision changed, and there you will learn to see truly. From this place where God and his Son dwell in peace, and where you are welcome, you will look out in peace and behold the world truly. Yet to find the place, you must relinquish your investment in the world as you project it, allowing the Holy Spirit to extend the real world to you from the altar of God. Bum, bum, bum. And there you have it. That is how you get to the real world.
By accepting that there's nothing outside myself,
Right.
that the whole world is in my mind.
Yes. The
quite
playground in your mind.
It's quite a big ask.
It
But-
sounds quite narcissistic as well to a certain degree, doesn't it? Or is it, am I getting that wrong? Because that's the kind of way I perceive that to be as well, a little bit.
Well, and that's the interesting thing about A Course in Miracles, because it's about your wholeness, your holiness, where we have been so accustomed to think of ourselves as small and little that to think of how grand our mind is as part of God's mind, we shy away of it and go, oh, no, 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 that can't be true. And, and that's the part where it's not necessarily our separate, well, it's absolutely not our separated mind. It's that one mind that we share with God, the one mind of God, which is where we are united with all of our brothers. And in that sense, it makes perfect sense. Whereas the ego mind says, oh, no, that's narcissistic to think that you're God. Well, you are God. And so is Ernesto and Freddie and Rachel and Eric and Carol and Carl. So as long as you can see the God in us all, that we are all part of that one mind of God, then it doesn't seem so narcissistic, right? I see Jeannie just joined. Hi, Jean. Great to have you here today. Katie and Mary, and we're all part of that one mind of God. And even all of those people we disagree with, right? That we think that we're separate from are all part of that one mind of God, which is why it says, if a brother asks you to do something outrageous, do it. Because by not doing it, you're making the outrageous of it, the outrageousness of it real.
We have to see it without the human mind while we see it as the Holy Spirit shows us to it. So the dualistic mind, the human mind, looks at things and oscillates between grasping and aversion and seeing what it doesn't like as well as seeing what it does like, tries to live in both worlds. You really can't live in both worlds and be peaceful. And so you give this up. You don't sacrifice it, you give it up because it's useless to you. You see instead, or one-mindedness. In one-mindedness, it's not narcissistic. In fact, it's quite giving of itself because it realizes giving is receiving. So it sees the wholeness of it. It's never distracted from that because this is where peacefulness is.
Good point, Eric. And a lot of times I'll say at-one-ment instead of atonement because it's part of that words are but symbols of symbols. And for me, saying at-one-ment has more meaning because it means we're all at one, part of that one mind, where atonement historically.
It's for the earlier getting going.
Right.
You have to atone for everything. And once you see that you've atoned for everything, you can see, in fact, that you're at one-ment.
Right. Yeah.
I guess for me, there's a dichotomy as well. I don't know whether I'm battling with my ego because, therefore, if nothing outside me actually exists, then equally you don't exist or none of my friends exist. When I'm trying to explain it to them, how do I, because I want to help other people.
You have to use the present and be present in this moment now, which is not an illusion. This moment is the moment of awakening. It's not a moment of illusion. It's awakening into who truly you really are, who truly you are intended to be as one with God. That's the awakening moment. That's the last moment of time. The last moment of time is any time that you apply yourself to the present moment, seeing through this oneness with the Holy Spirit, that all things are for the good, for the increasing of joy, for the increasing of peace, for the increasing of kindness. Because you see this, then you're in the present moment. That's all you really can see in the present moment if you see rightly. You can't see what's wrong because what's wrong, in fact, is that distraction that you don't allow anymore. The reason you don't allow it anymore is because it isn't necessary. It's only an attack on what isn't real. The attack on what isn't real is what you see when you see your dualistic mind at odds with itself.
Okay, yeah.
What also is the illusion is we kind of say the world is an illusion, but we've glossed over a more precise way of saying it, perhaps, is it is our perception that needs changing. It is the perception of the world that is illusion. So that a bird is a bird, and God was created this world, and we are co-creators. However, maybe in our infancy of being co-creators, we made a big mistake. The tiny mad idea was then born, and that is duality, and that is the illusion. So it is the perception. So I consider my brother very real, even if that's just a signpost and a symbol for me to learn from and see myself, which is why you can't completely reach into that and change it, if you will. You only act as being yourself, and then that vibration hopefully or is able to be in sync with another energy vibration, and therefore it kind of raises all. So it is that perception that, in my mind, we're working on changing. Once you flip that, it's heaven on earth.
It becomes automatic, as you said earlier, and it gets changed for you in this vision, this one-minded vision. So that's where miracle mindedness allows us to see, okay, so now I can actually see it clearly while I'm trying to interact with someone. And so I can actually share with someone what I see. To the best of my ability, however, I may be limited by language. I may be limited by experience of that kind of communication. And these may seem to interfere still. So with practice, of course, that now it can become strengthened and therefore increased and therefore more comprehensible to a different mind, and therefore allowing to see the joining of the mind in this oneness is the only way through being able to describe this with each other and enjoy each other's company.
And there is a book called The Most Commonly Asked Questions in A Course in Miracles. And that question is in this book. How do I explain this to family members and friends? And basically the answer is there is no right or wrong answer. But in order to get your ego out of the way while you're explaining it, it's best to ask Holy Spirit for guidance.
Yeah.
So before you answer that question, just kind of tune in and align yourself with your higher self. And allow whatever message comes through. And maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's I need do nothing. Maybe the answer is I can't explain it to you. I can give it to you. You can look at it. Or maybe something comes. Maybe there's a word that comes from that connection you have with your higher self.
Yeah.
What was the name of that book again, please?
It's called The Most Commonly Asked Questions.
And who's it?
A Course in Miracles, and it is written by the Foundation for A Course in Miracles, Gloria Wapnick and Ken Wapnick.
I see. Thank you.
There's a lot of really,
I have those questions. Thank you. I have them on. There's an online version of that also.
yeah, I think there is.
At least I have a copy of it anyway.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's quite a common theme in the course that the truth cannot be described. It can only be experienced.
Experience, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is why the lessons are so important.
Yeah, but I wanted to just share with Nick that the idea that the world is in my mind, it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It's that my perception of the world is all in my mind. So my perception of everything is in my mind. Yeah. And that's where the work needs to be done.
Yes.
You know, so when I say the whole world is in my mind, I still have a need to see it outside myself, actually, probably because I don't take full responsibility for what I see, as I think is evidenced by the struggles I was mentioning earlier. But I don't think it does. It means that I know the Course says that the world doesn't exist, but I haven't got to that stage. I see that it exists, but as perception in my mind. That's where
the real world is the world we see only through the eyes of Christ, right?
Yeah.
So it depends on your perception of the world, right? So you can see the real world if you are looking at it through forgiveness.
So one thing that has helped me through my journey is because I'm somebody who has come from the intellectual side. I did not have a lot of understanding into the things you couldn't understand, or see, I guess I should say. But Freddie nailed it on the head for me earlier, where it's truth has to be experienced, and you can try to wrap it in a beautiful gift as much as you can to other people, but that is the truth of the matter. And I'll take it one step further, that I hope that this will maybe potentially take some relief off of your shoulders or anybody's shoulders, that, you know, it's that weight of, oh my gosh, especially now that I know this truth, I really want everybody to know this truth, not only so they can live in the same types of freedoms that I feel, but because it's the right thing to do. And for a long time, that really, that weighed me down, because it felt like a lot of responsibility collectively to save the world. And then I kind of detached and went into a lot of isolation because I couldn't handle that. But it's this idea of collectivism versus individualism, and both are important, but you ultimately end up making the biggest change and ripple effects when you do your own change. As most of us know, again, that's a truth that you end up feeling, but this idea of like things not being real, it is a hard thing to wrap your brain around. But what happened or helped me as the scientific side to the ethereal side is that if you think about it, like when you think about your identity, where are you housing yourself? You know, like you might feel it in your head, you might feel it in your chest. Like when I really sat down to ask myself that question, I couldn't pinpoint one specific place I felt. And then that started to make more sense, because the body's a form, right? And it's the only thing that doesn't stay with us when we leave. Quite literally, our energy is what leaves, and energy is real. Energy is the only thing. This body will go back to the earth as it was supposed to once I leave, but energy goes. So theoretically, that's how I adapted that. That's what it means to be not real, because it's just not eternal, if that makes sense.
Perfect. Well
Yeah.
said, Rachel.
Yeah.
Thanks. And I'd come off camera, but I got a toddler who keeps going potty, so.
And it is 1:30, so unless there's any other discussion that we want to entertain, I think we should probably let everyone go, but please feel free to join at 12 o'clock. I'm here from 12 to 12:30 for discussions prior to reading, and it was great to have you all here today.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you, Nick. Hope you come again.
Yeah, definitely. I'll definitely want to. Thank you. You've all
Thank
been
you, Nick.
amazing. So thank you so much. Lovely.
Thank you
Great
for
to
being
have you
here.
here, Nick.
Thank you.
Yes.
Great
Thank
to
you.
see all of
Alright.
you. See you next
Bye.
I just
Yeah.
would like
you,
to, I
everybody.
just would like to ask for a second or a minute to say that it's kind of an announcement and it's a blessing, but my granddaughter, who has cancer, she's 21, is in treatment. She was told that she was pregnant at the time she had to start chemo. They had said that the baby would not survive it. However, we were told a few days ago that she is just about 8 months pregnant with a seemingly, at this point, healthy baby boy.
Wow.
Good.
So, so she's moving in with me with her 19-month-old daughter, and now a baby to come on my birthday. He's due.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
Congratulations.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
it's kind of a situation that could be stressful, could have lots of drama with it, but also is a blessing. So there's that.
Enjoy it,
Well,
Mary.
we'll be sending
Beautiful.
lots of loving thoughts your way, Mary.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Thanks. Bye, everybody. Ciao.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, Mary.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.